Heyo, what's good, reader fam? Hope you're doing well, hope you're living your life to the fullest, and I hope that you finally found that door that leads you to a magical world, even if that door is in the shape of a book. Today I'm going to be talking about books that I read because of book hype. Talk about scandalous! It is ever so easy to get caught up in book hype. Honestly, not even just book hype. Like anything that has hype behind it, it's easy to get caught up in it. From books to movies to TVs to music, you name it, it's got hype behind it, it's easy to get caught up in it. And I myself find that I get caught up in it a lot. You know something that I was able to really avoid? Hamilton. I avoided that hype, even though still to this day I've got people throwing Hamilton my way saying I must get into it. And that's when I run in the other direction. With book hype, it's just so much easier for me to get caught up in it. I'll be swimming in my ocean of books and suddenly get caught up in a whirlpool full of hype. And the next thing I know, I'm drowning in it. Hype can be both a bad thing and a good thing. It can lead you to a lot of bad books, but it can also lead you to a lot of great books. It really just depends on how you look at it. I see people saying all the time that they stay away from hyped books, which honestly, I applaud you. How do you do it? Because I find it so difficult to avoid when they're always in my feed, whether it be on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. People are talking about it left and right, and I just can't escape it. And the next thing I know, I've picked up that book and I'm reading it. Clearly, I have a hard time avoiding books that have lots of buzz behind them. It's almost like people are putting them in my feed to taunt me. I see what you're doing. I get it now. Can you not? They know I'm fast to fall into hype traps, so what are they doing? They're setting up traps for me. It's all their fault. It's not my fault at all. Except it is. It's completely my fault. Anyway, today I'm going to be talking about 5 books that I initially wasn't interested in, but eventually I read these books because people wouldn't shut up about them. Let's do it! For the first book, you're going to have to put on your pretends to be shocked face, and that is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare, the first book in the Mortal Instruments series. This book follows a girl who discovers the world of shadow hunters, which are these people who fight demons. Once she discovers it, she soon finds herself completely wrapped up in it. This was like the book when I first joined it, like the book. Emphasis on the. I had people all up in my mentions being like, read it or die. Which I thought was a bit drastic, like I'm new to the community and this is your way of welcoming me with death threats. So guess what I did? I read it so I wouldn't die. So that's why I'm still here today, because I read this book. I might be exaggerating just a little bit. I didn't really jive with this book right away. I started it like 2 times before I was initially able to make my way through it all the way. We just didn't really mesh together in perfect harmony. There was just this point in this book where I kept getting stuck. It was a very info-dumpy world-building moment that I just kept sinking into like sinking sand, and I would set the book aside and read something else. I also used to accidentally call this series the Immortal Instruments series, and that sure had a lot of people yelling at me. I honestly didn't mind the hype for this one because joining BookTube, I honestly didn't know about that many books. At the time, I wasn't much of a reader. I was starting this channel to become more of a reader, so BookTube was my place for all sorts of book recommendations. So I was happy to have people recommending me books, even if they were doing so in a rather violent way. Now, the question is, did this book live up to the hype? As this is one of my least favorite Cassandra Clare books, I'm gonna have to say nope. But what I will say is that this book is worth it. And I say that because you have to read this book in order to read the rest of the Mortal Instruments series, and there are some gems within that series. Had we not had City of Bones, we wouldn't have the masterpiece that is City of Glass. And what a sad, sad world that would have been. A world without City of Glass? No thank you. You can keep that world to yourself. For me, this book was just really hard to get into. The insta-love got a big side-eye for me. Some of the characters were really frustrating to me. The info dumps really weigh it down at certain points. And while I don't think the tropes are bad, some of the tropes that are displayed in here aren't my favorite. Like, how do you write a series that has so many flaws, and yet here I am over here, unnervingly excited to read each and every book? I do not understand. I don't think that I will ever understand. Something that I will say that this book does really well is get you invested in some of the characters, even though a lot of them make a lot of stupid decisions and really frustrate and enrage you. You won't turn your back on them because for some reason they have you whipped. The next book on my list is Divergent by Veronica Roth. One choice can transform you. Divergent by Veronica Roth. This is a dystopian book that takes place in Chicago, which in this book, Chicago has been revamped and now there are different sectors, different factions, if you will. And we follow our main character that's got a secret, but if that secret's revealed, then it could lead to her death, which would be, you know, pretty sucky. Nobody wants a secret that could ultimately lead to their death. I was literally not interested in this book. I had kind of burnt myself out on dystopian books, or so I thought, at the time of this book kind of really gaining a lot of momentum and hype. I think it was like the second year of my channel channel where this book was like the queen of book hype, and I was avoiding her at all costs. I mean, normally I would have wanted to meet a queen, but like, I was intimidated by her for some reason. I was intimidated by this queen, but everyone was talking about her. Everyone was putting her on a throne as if she was untouchable. But me over here, being the hipster that I thought I was, decided that I was gonna have nothing to do with her. Then my birthday comes around, and guess what one of my friends decides to get me? The Bible. I'm kidding. They got me Divergent. And honestly, I went and complained to one of my other friends because I was like, I don't want to read this. I didn't ask for this, and yet it came for me. And that friend was like,
why don't you just try it out and see if you like it?
So I did as she pleased, but she had also read this book and loved it, so like, she's biased. But I gave in, I started the first chapter, and the next thing I know, I'm on Amazon ordering the second book because this book somehow, someway had completely sucked me in, and I needed the second book stat. So, did this book live up to the hype? I personally think it did. Even as my reading life has changed and my reading taste have changed, I still think that this is a quality book. As for the trilogy as a whole, that's debatable. But the first book has a lot of great elements. It was captivating, the writing wasn't too detailed, so it was easy to kind of get invested, and the world was easy to understand and to plant yourself into. So for me, this one lived up to the hype. As much as I was trying to be a book snob and avoid her, I gave into her, and she did her thing. She proved herself to be deserving of that hype crown that she wore ever so gracefully for a few years. The next book on my list is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. This book is about this rich family that lives on their own private island during the summer, which must be nice. If any rich families out there want to adopt me, you can't have me because I love my family, but if you want to take me and my family to a private island over the summer, I'd love that. Sign me the heck up. Something pretty bad happened within this family that we know nothing about throughout this book. We are in the dark, but as the story progresses, we are reaching to the light. We're finding that light at the end of the tunnel and figuring out the mystery, figuring out what the heck happened. I feel like this one was really driven by hype because of the fact that a part of the marketing plan was to keep the description of the book as secret as possible. No one really knew what this book was going to be about going into it. There were very little details given. When you read the description of this book, all it really does tell you is that it's about a family, it's about friends, and it's about this private island and this rich lifestyle, which ultimately that just doesn't really tell you anything about what this book is going to be about. It just kind of gives you some ideas as to what could possibly be at the forefront of the story. It could be about family, it could be about money, it could be about friendship, but that's about it. You're spending your coins on a complete mystery. Smart marketing plan, yes, but it leads us readers unsure if we're going into a book that we're going to enjoy. It's just kind of all up in the air and you hope for the best. For me, thankfully, the Bookish Gods dropped this book into my hands and it was a hit. It did the dang thing for me. It left me shooketh. Even to this day, when I think about this book, I am shook. On the flip side though, I know that a lot of people were let down by this book, but I didn't end up at that party, thankfully. I felt satisfied in a very tortured way because this book just completely jacked up my emotions and left me shattered, which honestly, I kind of love when books do that. When the power of words can make your heart do a little thumpity thumpity and get your eyeballs swelling a little bit with tears. In my book, that means it's doing something right. So what did I like about this book specifically? I liked how unpredictable it was. It kind of has you questioning everything that's happening. It causes you to kind of come up with all these theories along the way, which I really enjoyed that aspect. The thing is, it's a book where anything could happen and you don't know what's real and what's not real, and I loved that quality in this book. I also love the style of writing in this book. It's kind of got that over the top, but also kind of hazy feeling to it. Like it feels like you're walking through fog, just trying to figure out what's going on. And that was fun for me. You're kind of unsure as to what's reality and what's not. I guess the word I'm looking for is trippy. The next book on my list is The Martian by Andy Weir. This book is about Mark Watney, who finds himself abandoned on Mars and he must figure out a way to stay alive. Staying alive. Staying alive. It's very rare that I read a sci-fi book. If you guys have been following this channel for a while, you know that I hardly ever read sci-fi books. I'd say that I read at least 2 or 3 a year, if that. It was really unlike me to pick up this book, but this one had non-stop chit-chat chatter going on behind its back, and it was all positive. So little old me, who doesn't read sci-fi, decided that he would pick up this book and read it because my curiosity had been compromised. I feel like I also picked this book up after watching the movie trailer. Like, that really had me intrigued, if I remember correctly. It had my interest levels elevated because it looked dope, which obviously book to movie adaptations kind of play into the book hype pool. So to my surprise, I picked up this book, I read it, and guess what? I loved it. It's so good. I still just have so much love for this book. It does have its flaws in my opinion. I wouldn't say that this is a perfect book. Like, hello, talk about slow-mo pacing. Also, all the science-y mathematical stuff just kind of went over my head, but I also kind of expected that going in. Other than that though, this is just such a quality adventure story story that delivered in such a rich way. And maybe it's because I really did not have many expectations going into the story, other than the fact that I knew that a lot of people loved it, so I guess that does kind of affect how I go into a book. But I didn't think that I would like it because it's a sci-fi book and I wasn't known for reading a lot of sci-fi. But to my surprise, I flippin' loved it, which tells me that I need to read more books that are outside of my comfort zone. Also, I really love the book to movie adaptation as well. I felt that it did such a fantastic job of capturing the book and making you feel the intensity of the situation. But I'm not here to give you a movie review today, so let's move on to the last book. The last book on my list is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This story is about a girl named Jude who was taken from the human world as a child and now lives in the world of Fae, where all she wants to do is fit in despite being human. And this book is somewhat about Jude kind of finding her place within the Fae world, but it's also about her dealing with the Cruel Prince, who is a full-on butthead. I'm doing just such a splendid job of describing these books today. That was sarcasm if you couldn't catch on to that. I was for sure going into this one being like,
I'm gonna hate it.
I'd had kind of a hit or miss situation with Holly Black's books. I hated The Coldest Girl in Cold Town, but I loved The Darkest Part of the Forest, so my skeptical levels were kind of high going into this book. But at the same time, I felt like I had lowered my expectations because of the fact that I had heard so many mixed feelings. There was a lot of love being thrown this book's way, but then there was also a wave of people who just straight up hated it. So I was interested to see which wave I was going to ride out. And plot twist, I ended up loving it. I don't think it's perfect by any means, like this book still has its issues that it needs to work out, but I get the hype, I back the hype, I am here for the hype. Even though I feel like I should say that hesitantly because I feel like I need to reread this book in order to be 100% of my opinion of this book. I like to be confident in my opinions, and I don't know if it was my initial feelings of being shook by this book and kind of translating that as, wow, this book is amazing, because there are moments in here that had me gasping for air. So I feel like I need to reread this book and kind of reassess my feelings. I have such a complicated way of thinking. I should just say I like it and move on with my life, because really, how big of a deal is it? Like, it's not that deep, Jesse. Okay, I'm gonna own it. I love this book. I enjoy it. I back that hype, I think. So those were 5 books that I read because of book hype. As you can see, a lot of these books I did end up enjoying, and maybe that's because I lower my expectations when I know that a book is hyped. I'm not really sure, but I'm interested to hear from you guys. What are some books that you read solely because of book hype? And what was your experience like with that book? Did you end up loving it or did you end up hating it? Let me know all your thoughts down below in the comments. If you like this video, be sure to go and hit that like button. If you want to see more bookish content from me, be sure to go and hit subscribe or go and hit that bell icon and you'll be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope your day is bright, that tomorrow is brighter. Keep reading what your heart desires, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye! -oh!